I didn't lose my job because I was bad at it. I lost it because I made a $40 million account look easy, and that made some very important people believe I was optional. For 8 years, my calendar wasn't mine. It belonged to one client, a global manufacturing group with too many subsidiaries, too many time zones, and way too much money on the table. I was the guy you never saw in the glossy case studies, but I was the name on every late-night call when something broke. If a plant in Mexico went offline at 2 a.m., my phone. If a shipment to Germany got stuck at customs, my phone. If some VP in Singapore woke up anxious about quarterly numbers, guess whose face he wanted on Zoom? On paper, I was just an account director. In reality, I was the nerve ending between a $40 million revenue stream and a corporate aneurysm. I knew the names of their kids, their time zones without checking, and which of them pretended to hate small talk, but secretly needed it before we could discuss numbers. I knew which supply chain manager drank his coffee black because his doctor banned sugar, and which CFO's camera mysteriously stopped working every time we discussed budget cuts. Our own leadership didn't know any of that. They only saw the number on the dashboard, 40 miles ARR, churn risk, low, smooth, stable, predictable. The kind of account you brag about at conferences as if it grew on a tree. When I joined, it wasn't like that. Back then it was a mess. 3 project managers had already quit. The client was threatening to walk, and there was a joke in the office that whoever got assigned to Goliath Industries should update their resume first. I didn't laugh when they assigned it to me. I took the folder, the disaster, and the 200-slide deck of angry emails and started calling people. Not emailing, calling. The first month, I slept with my laptop open at the foot of the bed. The second month, my girlfriend got tired of waking up to me whispering, "I hear you, let's solve it," to strangers and left. By month 6, the joke about Goliath stopped. By year 2, our CEO was name-dropping them in every investor meeting like it had always been this way, and then they hired Ethan. If you've ever worked in a big company, you know Ethan. Tall, good hair, expensive watch he didn't care about, MBA from the right school, laugh a little too loud at the CEO's jokes. Official title, VP, Strategic Growth and Partnerships. Unofficial role, the favorite. He wasn't evil. He was glossy. He spoke in phrases like synergy mapping and relationship capital, and never sent an email with fewer than 3 bullet points and 1 slide attached. He knew how to present. He knew how to be in the room. What he didn't know was where anything actually lived in our systems, or how fragile a stable account can be. The first time he joined one of my Goliath calls, he introduced himself like a keynote speaker. "So excited to be working with you guys. Really admire the partnership here. Can't wait to take things to the next level." It was a quarterly review. The client's operations lead just wanted to know why a shipment was 3 hours late. After the call, my main contact, Aaron, messaged me privately. "Who's the TED Talk?" I stared at the screen a second too long before typing back. "New leadership. Getting up to speed." "Nice suit," Aaron replied. "Let's hope he learns where the factory is." I should have known then. Over the next few months, Ethan did what favorites do. He floated. In every meeting, on every deck, copied on every high-level email, nodding thoughtfully while I ran through issues, mitigations, action items. When something went right, he was in the room for the congratulations. When something went wrong, he trusted me to handle it. And to be fair, I did handle it. That was the problem. When you're good at quietly cleaning up messes, people stop seeing the mess. They just see no problem. The rumors started small. Reorg, new vertical focus, aligning incentives, all the phrases that mean someone is about to get screwed and it won't be the guy with the Rolex. Then one Tuesday I got a calendar invite from HR. Quick catch-up. No agenda. 30 minutes. With HR and my direct manager, Karen. I've been doing this long enough to know that nothing good happens in a room with those two. and no bullet points. The conference room was one of those neutral spaces with glass walls and fake plants that try to look comforting and instead make your skin feel too tight. Karen was already there, laptop open, HR across from her with a printed folder. Nobody had coffee. That's how I knew for sure. "Hey, thanks for making the time," HR started, like I'd asked for this. "No problem," I lied. Karen cleared her throat. She wouldn't look me in the eye, which was funny because a year earlier, she'd cried in my office about her divorce. Apparently vulnerability has a direction. "I'll get straight to it," HR said. "As you know, the company is going through some strategic restructuring. Yeah, we've been evaluating roles, overlap, and where we need to streamline." Streamline. Another word for, "We think you'll take this quietly." "We really appreciate everything you've done," Karen added quickly, eyes fixed on some invisible point above my shoulder, "especially with Goliath. You've been instrumental." Instrumental. Past tense. I let them talk. Words like transition and package and not performance-related floated over the table like cheap balloons. "There's no easy way to say this," HR finally said. "Your role is being eliminated." I didn't say anything for a second. I just listened to the blood in my ears. Then very calmly, "Who's taking Goliath?" It was almost satisfying to watch the micro-flinch they both tried to hide. "Well," HR said, flipping a page she didn't need, "going forward, we'll be consolidating strategic accounts under Ethan's leadership. He'll be the primary point of contact. Obviously, there will be a handover period." "There won't," I cut in. Karen shifted in her chair. "We'd love for you to help transition." "You're firing the guy who's been on every call at 3 a.m. for 4 years, I said, still in that same calm, dead voice you get in a car accident, right after the impact. "To give a $40 million account to someone who doesn't know the difference between order numbers and invoice numbers. And you want me to write him a welcome brochure?" "That's not fair," Karen blurted. "Ethan brings a lot of value." "I'm sure he does," I said. "To you." HR tried to steer it back to the script. Severance. Cobra. Outplacement services. They slid the envelope across the table like a consolation prize. I looked at it, then at them, and realized something that hit me harder than the word eliminated ever could. They genuinely believed the account would be fine without me. In their heads, Goliath belonged to the logo on our building, not to the relationships that lived in my phone. They'd studied the revenue, the margins, the growth charts. They'd never once studied the number of times I'd talked someone out of walking. I signed what I had to sign, asked what I needed to ask. No raised voices, no dramatic speeches. I took the envelope, my notebook, and the plant on my desk that had somehow survived more all-nighters than most of my coworkers. On the way out, I passed Ethan in the hallway. He was laughing with someone from finance. Phone in his hand, jacket over his shoulder like a magazine cover. "Hey, man," he said when he saw the box in my arms. "You heading out early?" "Yeah," I said. Something like that. He clapped my arm like we were buddies. "We'll catch up later. I've got a Goliath check-in in 15. Big stuff." I just nodded and kept walking. In the elevator, alone with my cardboard box, I watched the floor numbers tick down and felt not rage, not yet, just a kind of clean, sharp emptiness. They thought they'd just swap names on a slide, a simple restructure, a line item. They fired me to hire the favorite and forgot one small thing. I was the one holding the account. They didn't even wait 24 hours before things started breaking. My laptop was barely powered off when the texts began coming in from the team. Quietly at first, like people whispering in a church. "Did you leave notes for the renewal timeline? Do you know where the Q3 audit files are stored? Ethan says he doesn't need the old workflow. Should we update the client?" I ignored every message, not out of spite, out of clarity. I wasn't theirs anymore. By the next morning, the whispers turned into full sentences. "Client asking for you, specifically. Ethan pushed a new structure, and it's confusing everyone." The supply chain director sounded pissed. I left my phone on silent. People forget. Silence is also a reply. Meanwhile, LinkedIn politely informed the world that I was open to work. I hadn't posted anything. Recruiters just smell blood in the water faster than sharks. They flooded my inbox with cold offers, random positions, contracts, relocations. None of it mattered, but by noon something did. My former client, Aaron, the guy who trusted me enough to call at 3 a.m. about missing cargo, sent me a single, tight line. "Is everything okay on your side? Your team seems off today." I stared at the message a full minute, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew exactly what not to say. I wasn't going to be the guy who badmouths his old employer the moment he's out the door. You don't burn bridges unless the bridge collapses on you first. So I typed the safest thing possible. "I'm no longer with the company, Aaron. You'll be in good hands." I added a period at the end so he'd know I didn't believe a word of it. 15 seconds later, he replied, "What? Who decided that?" Another message. "Why didn't they tell us? We had an executive review today." And then the one that told me everything I needed to know. Ethan ran the call. It was not good. I exhaled slowly. Not satisfaction, not revenge, just inevitability. But that was only hour 5. By the end of that week, the situation went from off to alarming. I heard from a former PM that Ethan had confidently presented a forecast using last year's numbers. Forgot 3 product lines, misquoted revenue. At one point, he told the CFO of Goliath Industries, "We're aligned on the North American rollout," even though the rollout was Europe only. They had to stop the meeting to clarify. Then came the Friday incident, a shipment issue, a small one, something I normally resolved in 10 minutes. Instead, it spiraled into a multi-hour disaster. Ethan escalated to the wrong department, CC'd the wrong client lead, and then tried to fix it by looping everyone in. Everyone. I'm talking 40 people across 8 time zones. Someone from my old team called me after midnight, voice low, like he was reporting a crime. "He doesn't know what a bill of lading is." I didn't laugh. I didn't even smile. I just said, "That's not my problem anymore." But inside, something shifted. Because that night, for the first time in 8 years, I realized I didn't owe them anything. Not loyalty, not rescue, not my sanity. That night, I stopped being the hero. Micro-catharsis 101. The next Monday, things got worse for them and clearer for me. Apparently during the weekly alignment call, the client asked directly, "Where is he? Why wasn't he on any of our meetings this week?" Ethan attempted some half-truth about restructuring and transitioning responsibilities, but the client wasn't stupid. Executives can smell uncertainty the way dogs smell fear. Then the bomb dropped. A VP on the client side said, "We need him back on the account, immediately." And Ethan, God bless his confidence, replied, "That won't be necessary. I'm fully up to speed." There was a long silence, the kind of silence that means something's gone wrong. Then the client closed with, "Let's pause all new initiatives until we reassess." Pause on a 40-mouths account. In my world, that word is the equivalent of a gunshot. I heard all of this from 3 different people in under an hour. They weren't gossiping. They were nervous. You don't pause accounts like Goliath unless trust has snapped. Still, I kept my cool. I had already packed my desk. I'd already said my goodbyes. I'd already walked out. But the universe apparently wasn't done with me yet. Because that same afternoon, a message came into my personal inbox from a competitor I'd spoken to years ago but never joined. "We heard about the restructure. If you're open to talking, call me." I stared at the email and felt something warm in my chest. Not pride, not ego. Something simpler. Possibility. I wrote back. We scheduled a meeting. It felt like stepping onto clean pavement after years of mud. And just when I thought the day was done, my old colleague sent me one more message. 2 words. "They're panicking." I leaned back in my chair, the quiet of my apartment settling around me like a second skin. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. Chaos doesn't start with shouting. It starts with people pretending everything is fine. By the time week 3 hit, Goliath wasn't pretending anymore. I heard from someone in finance that the client had escalated a complaint through every layer of our company. Not a polite nudge, a formal documented escalation, the kind that gets forwarded to executives with the subject line, urgent, action required. The reason? Ethan scheduled a quarterly strategy review without confirming availability. He invited the wrong directors. He uploaded the wrong slide deck, an outdated one 6 months old, with numbers that didn't exist anymore, and then tried to freestyle the updated metrics. He mixed up SKUs, forgot sales commitments, quoted KPIs from an entirely different account, and the final blow, when asked about a distribution delay in the European market, he answered confidently, "We're aligned with the Mexico plant on that." There is no Mexico plant. Someone who was there said the client's director actually pinched the bridge of his nose like he was trying not to laugh or scream. But this was only the opening act. Because after the meeting, Goliath did what Goliath always does when something matters. They requested an executive review with our C-suite. No slides, no fluff, just answers. Our COO joined, Ethan joined, Karen joined, 6 client executives joined. I didn't, but someone leaked the play-by-play to me afterward in painful detail. It started normally enough, polite greetings, smiles, and then the client's VP asked the only question that mattered. Where is he? Silence. The kind that sits on the table like a heavy suitcase. Karen finally said, "He isn't with the company anymore." The VP didn't even blink. Why were we not informed? Ethan jumped in with something about transitions, evolving structures, optimizing resources. He smiled while saying it. That was his mistake. Because the VP didn't smile back. "We're not interested in corporate language," he said very calmly. "We're interested in results, and your results have collapsed." He showed them a list, missed deadlines, incorrect forecasts, delayed shipments, conflicting reports, client confidence declining. Then he asked the question Karen had been praying wouldn't come. Did he train the replacement? Ethan swallowed. "We're in the process of aligning." "So he didn't," the VP said. "Understood." Someone told me Karen's face went gray. Then the VP looked directly into the camera and delivered the sentence that changed everything. Until further notice, consider the account frozen. You don't freeze a 40-man contract unless you expect it to fall apart. You don't announce it on a call unless you want the vendor to feel it. My phone buzzed 8 times in 10 minutes after that meeting. I didn't answer once. I spent that afternoon in a quiet cafe, reviewing the offer the competitor had sent me. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't a miracle. But it was clean, respectful, honest. I signed it. A digital signature. 2 clicks. Done. That was my first act of revenge, choosing myself. By day 30, the cracks in my old company weren't cracks anymore. They were fractures. The COO demanded a full internal audit of the account. The PM team was drowning. Someone in billing accidentally invoiced Goliath twice, which triggered another escalation. A supply chain update got sent with the wrong date format, delaying customs clearance. A director snapped at Ethan in a meeting and had to apologize later. I wasn't there for any of it, but people kept sending updates like they were reporting a slow-motion avalanche. Then came the request that sealed everything. Goliath asked for a continuity review. Translated, who is responsible, who failed, and who do we want instead? And apparently during that review, the highest-ranking client executive asked, what would it take to bring him back? My old company didn't have an answer. Someone tried to call me anyway. I let it ring. Another tried email, deleted. Karen texted me a paragraph. I didn't open it. By week 6, a final email came from a friend still inside. They know they messed up. Hard. I leaned back in my new office chair, the cheap one, the temporary one, the one I didn't even adjust yet, and exhaled. I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. Just steady, rooted, unmoved. Because the truth was simple. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. I was exactly where I needed to be, right before everything collapsed on their side. When the end finally came, it didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived with an email written so formally it almost sounded embarrassed. Effective immediately, Goliath Industries will be terminating our partnership. No emotion, no hesitation, just a clean corporate guillotine. Someone forwarded it to me within 3 minutes of it landing, then another person, then 10 more. And tucked at the bottom of the email, almost polite, almost cruel, was the line, "We have chosen to transition our business to a partner whose leadership we trust." They didn't say my name. They didn't have to. $40 million evaporated from my old company in a single breath. 40 million they thought I didn't matter to. I found out later how those next 48 hours unfolded for them. The CEO called an emergency meeting, legal got involved, finance tried to run scenarios that didn't exist. Investor relations drafted a carefully worded statement to interpret the loss. A quiet panic spread through the upper floors like smoke. Ethan, the favorite, the rising star, the man with the perfect watch, simply folded. He froze up in meetings, botched explanations, claimed things weren't communicated clearly. And at some point, no one agrees on when, he started crying in a conference room. By the end of the week, he was no longer with the organization, not fired, not resigned, just gone. The corporate equivalent of being erased with a damp cloth. Karen tried to survive longer, but the audit didn't spare her. One report said she failed to assess operational risk. Another said leadership gaps contributed significantly to client dissatisfaction. Another email, also forwarded to me, of course, announced that she was transitioning to new opportunities. Corporate poetry. But the irony was this. I didn't feel joy. Not the punch the air kind, not the vindictive kind. Just a slow, warm exhale that spread through my chest like someone finally loosening a too tight belt. Because by the time they lost the account, I was already building something new. My new employer didn't parade me around like a trophy. They didn't slap my name in presentations. They didn't assign me 3 interns and call it support. What they gave me was simpler. A chair, a laptop, a clean slate, and the freedom to run my accounts the way I knew worked. The first week I met with Goliath's executive team, now my clients again. The VP who froze the old contract joined the call. He greeted me with, "Good to have you back. Let's do this right. No drama, no speeches, just respect." We rebuilt the workflow together, reset timelines, reestablished trust without needing to say the word. My new CEO didn't hover. My team listened when I spoke. Meetings ended early because people actually prepared. It felt grown up, clean. But the best moment came quietly. It happened on a Tuesday morning, 2 months after I'd joined. I walked into the office, still the temporary one, still with the cheap chair, and found a small envelope on my desk. Inside was a printed note from the CEO. "Thank you for bringing Goliath on board. We're proud to have you." Under it was a bonus slip, a real one, not a symbolic number, one that changed things. I sat down, let the paper rest on my lap, and just breathed. That was the moment the satisfaction finally hit. Not when they fired Ethan, not when my old company panicked, not even when the contract moved to us. It was right there, in the quiet, realizing I didn't need to win loud. I won by walking away calm. And life after that became surprisingly simple. I went to the gym in the mornings, cooked actual breakfasts, stopped sleeping with my laptop open. I left work at 6 and didn't feel guilty. I answered emails like a person, not a lifeline. Old colleagues occasionally reached out, hinting for details. I never gave any. What happened didn't need storytelling. It lived in the numbers. Sometimes I crossed paths with people from the old company. Their reactions varied. Some awkward smiles, some sympathy, some relief it hadn't been them. One guy tried to joke, "Man, you really brought the house down." I shrugged and told him the truth. I just stopped holding it up. And there it was. The whole story in one sentence. One day, while wrapping up a routine report, I skimmed social media and saw a headline buried in an industry newsletter. Mid-tier SaaS firm restructures leadership following key account loss. That was them, reduced to a paragraph, a footnote, a cautionary tale for business students someday. I closed the tab, didn't save it, didn't smile, didn't care. Because the real ending wasn't their fall. It was my peace. That evening I stayed late, not because I had to, but because I wanted the quiet. The office was dim, screens dark, the city humming softly outside. I sent a final email, shut down my computer, and leaned back, letting the silence settle. No deadlines, no 3 a.m. calls, no favorites replacing me in rooms I built. Just my work, my pace, my life. I picked up my keys, turned off the desk lamp, and walked out. In the hallway, I stopped for a second and listened. To nothing, to space, to the clean air after a storm. Silence never felt this good.